Right. Let us do a... I was gonna play Genshin, but now I want to do this sort of react to the unfair comparison Genshin versus Wuthering. I'm probably gonna end up glazing Genshin a bit in this one, but I did want to like give my take and see if I agree, disagree, or debunk this video. But there are a lot of things that I never see any CCs ever talk about it, and we gotta talk about it.
Thing with both
At least from
games,
the
which is
CCs
the
that I
gameplay.
watched.
Now, the way the games are played is actually
see
a
this.
little different, and for some people it could be actually unfair to compare them both. But we can spot the similarities, because if we look at Genshin, the gameplay or the core gameplay is creating a team of 4 characters that has a really good strategic rotation and can create good reactions with the element system that has mostly 1 or sometimes 2 rotations to do the most amount of damage. Every character has an ability, every character has an ultimate,
Okay, yeah,
and of
kinda.
course you have the
So yeah, and I mean, depending on how well invested you are, it's true, and also like, if somebody's hyper invested vertically, they can solo with no need for rotations. Just change up her artifacts from like Cinder to the other Obsidian, and she becomes main DPS. Stick everybody else off team if you just want to see one character do everything, and she's one who can do it, but only at C6. So a small caveat, but more or less, yeah.
ability to dodge. But characters can really change the way you play the game, especially if you have a very powerful shielder like Zhongli, which can make you not do so many dodges on most enemies. But of course, there are so many enemies that will probably change that strategy and make a shielder not useful. On the other hand, with Wuthering Waves, you create a team of 3 that is, instead of playing around elemental systems, is mainly playing around the intro and outro skills and the buffs that every character gives to the main DPS, so that
Okay, yes, Wuthering Waves has this, and I actually have it pulled up too. And yes, you do have 3 characters, but while I like both games, I like the Genshin system more, because you'll do the intro thing when this little circle bar at the bottom here fills up. Right here. And then it's outro for one character, intro for the other, you know, one that's leaving and one that's coming in. I don't like this as much as Genshin's system, because Genshin has a visual representation of what's going on. You could have giant Mavuika or, you know, whatever Raiden circle for elemental thing that's on like the back of any character that you switch to. The enemy has little mark of which element they have, and you know they have the elemental mark from a previous character that you kind of had just before switching to the new one, and now you know the new one with a different element will slap it, create a sandwich of 2 elements combining into some effect, and you'll see like an extra bigger, nice.
We should take a break after
Here
all
you're
that
kind of
running
just
around.
you switched once. You expect the buff to be
Let's
here
rest
somewhere
here
in
for
the
a bit.
background doing usual background percent number stuff, right? It's not fun gameplay visual stuff, it's background percent number buffed stuff that you're just expected to have, that just happen. You know, it's not like an off-field what do you call, coordinated attacker type of situation, right? Those do exist in Wuthering, but from what I understand, I'm not using any 5 stars besides. Some moot point, I guess. There are them, they do exist. You could do off-field stuff with like Mortefi,
Make this quick. I've anything
Yuanwu,
I can help you with.
somebody else, I think. There is a 5-star limited character,
No
the Inland,
rush.
who does coordinated
The
off-field
impatient
attacks, but
ones
she needs a
will
little
fall
bit of
right
setup.
into our lap.
Anyway, there's like a few of those. But you could say that Genshin's characters all have off-field coordinated attacks by just applying their element in a way that is continuously applied, or by just having it applied, even if it's just one off-field attack. You could say it's an off-field attack from that character, right? Early characters were like Ganyu, her burst stays on when she's off the field. Technically, her burst is a circle impact, but it is in that circle doing coordinated attacks. True coordinated attackers like Raiden and Mavuika happen later. But you get a lot of these. You get a lot of these combination attackers that always have an off-field thing that is visually represented in a fun gameplay kind of way, rather than this background mathematical kind of boring way. So that's
You can make a
that's
rotation
that
where
thing.
you utilize your concerto energy and abilities with every character so that you can buff the main DPS. But
Yeah,
after
see,
using
buff
that, we also have the fact that there is an important thing in Wuthering Waves, which is parrying and perfect dodging. Yes, you
That
can dodge like in Genshin,
something
but you
Genshin
can
doesn't
perfect
really
dodge,
have
which gives you another type of attack, but
all.
also
There
is
is
so
no, like,
rewarding
unique
because it gives you
attacks
more
from just doing
concerto
perfect
energy. But the
dodging.
gameplay also is now utilizing the elemental system even more by using the Spectrophrasal, the arrow erosion and all that. And overall,
Which, honestly, like, yeah, it's cool. They have all these, like, new ways of attacking, like, elemental sort of reaction upgrades. But they're either you have to have rover built, but in most cases it's there to sell the character, so it's kind of like it's honestly like the most optimal version of these is honestly like a pay-gated version, because for example, but if we go to war, right, for example, you have this one, Zani. She benefits from that new reaction, specifically that like plasma thing. But you're gonna have to build rover for that.
As we head
And you
toward
want
our
the best
shared
one, you're
future,
gonna have to
leaving
get
the
Phoebe,
past
which
behind.
is a 5-star limited character, so it's a pay gate. Right? So they are pay gating reactions. When they make reactions, new effects, they do pay gate. Like, Uwa is not perfect. It's not, oh my god, so much better monetizing. Actually, no, not at all. They are also greedy, plenty greedy in their own ways.
Wuthering Waves combat will probably be a little harder, especially that you will be needing.
And to make a point, all this new, like, I was gonna make this video a while ago, but I guess it's a good thing I held off, because it's like a month-old video, 2 months ago. I really wanted to react to this forever, but now I waited, now I know that I could say, well, Genshin is also doing newer elemental reaction updates that they are paywalling. So there is that.
A good reaction time where you have to understand the bosses and all that. And with
So they're
Genshin,
both good.
the probably hardest thing and the most important thing will be how you build the team, because that's more important in Genshin than probably Wuthering Waves. Now, after saying all that, let us see. The Wuthering Waves combat.
Here I disagree. It's equally important to build a team, but you do only need 3 characters versus 4 characters in WoW versus Genshin. I am gonna talk about the problems of those 3 characters in WoW, but before we get to that point, just isolating it in its own nutshell, there's 3 versus 4, so already you have less characters to worry about building, but it is harder to notice synergies between those 3 characters versus having 4 in Genshin, like I said before. There's a fun spectacle visual representation for characters in Genshin versus WoW, where WoW doesn't really do it like that, with a few exceptions.
Is faster, and it has way more mobility than the Genshin Impact one. It also got more elements to it.
There is
but
more
the
mobility,
reason why
there
you
is
cannot
more
just
systems for
objectively say
combat,
that
but-
Genshin Impact.
But that's not necessarily a good thing, because that just means more ways to monetize, pay gate, power creep, and just, I guess, screw over the player, right? The more something is complicated, the more ways it is possible to mess around and make it hard for a player who's not spending.
Impact has worse combat, like a lot of people are saying, is because
But it
the
is fun, good
elemental
combat,
system-
and right now you can be free to play and still do basically all content, yes. You just have to really min-max the artifacts and all this other stuff,
and
but
the
we'll get into
reactions
that in
are
another
executed in a way that makes the
just doing
gameplay
gameplay
fun
right
for
now.
different reasons. It's very fun to do that strategy of creating a good combo between characters by using the elements. And the fact that changing
So overall, I say, like, for the gameplay visual aspect of it, Wuthering has great visual combat representation per character. Genshin has great visual representation of combat on character dynamics, character synergies. But both have good characters with good visual combat. For singular individual character, Wuthering is a bit better, of course. They have your perfect dodges, your counters, but counters are also dependent on whether the enemy has an attack.
We
with a
should
little yellow
take a
circle
break
where
after all that
counter
running
can-
around.
You don't just counter whatever you want, which would have been better. But,
Yeah.
take what you
Let's
can
rest
get.
here for a bit.
Build a little bit, for some characters can change their teams a lot. For example, let's take the Rider Shogun, where you can use her either as an electric
Yeah, see, all these, like,
character,
spectacle
or
stuff?
change her build completely for
Great.
the hyper
You know
teams.
stuff
And I'm
that's
one
off
of the
field
people
is
that
still
does
doing
have
stuff.
so much fun with that reaction system.
And
I
you
can
can
say
actually-
that the reasons
You can actually look at the enemies and the characters and enjoy their visuals instead of trying to pay attention to like little UI notes of stacks and seconds, which is honestly annoying.
or the way I enjoy
At some point, yeah, you practice it enough, it becomes organic, you sort of keep it in your mind without looking at it. But having to pay attention to things other than what you want is to me annoying. I want to just see how like monsters fight and their animations versus my animations, you know? I don't want to just pay attention to little HP bars and UI elements.
the Wuthering Waves gameplay is different than the way I enjoy the Genshin Impact gameplay. Now, if you want to get personal and say which one I do prefer the Wuthering Waves gameplay, because I do like the faster paced gameplay. I do like the fact that you can parry and use more of your skill with the bosses, because sometimes for me, the reaction system will get old, especially when you use the same teams. And when you talk about the
So, because both of these, to me, get old, seeing the same exact animations and things from Wuthering is a little more flashy, a little more varied.
Do I still have to finish? Let's
But
see.
long term,
One,
it's not more varied enough that it's not gonna get just as old as Genshin. So they're kind of even here. If I had to say, I prefer Genshin more because you can have stronger builds in Genshin for your enemies in Genshin than you do in WoW for Wuthering enemies. Because what I mean is, your combat can be a lot shorter, a lot faster, and a lot smoother in Wuthering because things are just not built to be hardcore, weird difficulty spike things for some reason. Like, you could like 3 to 1 shot something, and that in itself, just knowing that you're gonna pop 2 skills and everything around you will just disappear into dust, that in itself is such a fun power trip that it escalates over Wuthering's approach, where you have to do combos and skills for every basic enemy you see, basically, because you cannot one-tap anything unless you're hyper-invested C6 character with like R5 weapon and whatever the fuck is going on, right? The whole maxed out type of shit with crazy builds. No, like everything is usually at your level and you almost never insta-delete everything like you'd want to. It is what it is, right? That makes Genshin's grind actually easier, better for like gameplay purposes, and it's nicer to just one-tap stuff. Even huge, massive bosses can get one-tapped for the stuff you need. It's great. That part is great. Like the grind combat isn't designed to create unreasonable padded timing for your grind, so to speak.
we should
characters and everything like that, it's kind of that the game gets easier and it's too much at some point. So for me, I do prefer the Wuthering Waves gameplay, but I had to emphasize on the point of the reaction system just to be fair. It is also really satisfying to see that your character that is probably a
This, of course, all predicated on my own accounts and experience, right? I don't watch min-max sweaty speedrunner type accounts doing anything. I'm sure there's probably a way to get one-taps on both accounts, and then it doesn't matter, and they're just completely even.
pyro character does 50,000 damage, but when they make a melt reaction, they do 100,000. It's really satisfying when you do that and amplify your damage so much in a crazy way with some of those reactions. Now, since we're still in the
He does mention that, right? He does say, oh, but in Genshin your damage and amplification for reaction is so good you can one-tap all things on screen and it's fun spectacle. Yeah, he
gameplay,
basically
let us
says
talk
it.
about these characters and kits and meta. So the character
Oh,
design
this.
is subjective. You can like the Wuthering Waves characters more, you can like the Genshin Impact more.
Yeah, full disclosure, my favorite characters are always the adult body types. So, like, Mavuika, Shilonen, maybe Chaska, but she's very cowgirl, western looking also. I don't know if I like that aesthetic for her too much. Like Shenhe, Changli, Yinlin, Sephiroth dude, what's his name? Or is the Sephiroth dude? It's hard to remember all of them.
I see my
Called
way
Charo?
clear.
Yeah, chalkboard dude. Yeah, calcium chalk. Very, very cool design character. I like this character. I do like Genshin as well. A lot of great designs. Kinda and her design is whatever. Her too. They like the problem with their designs is you got like red girl, blue girl syndrome going on. So already I'm like not super happy with just here's blue girl number one. Here's kind of bluish girl number two. You know, here's blue girl number three. Blue girl number four with less white. Then you got the same problem with the red girl. You got the red girl with white black, red girl with black, another red girl with white, red, black, and then another red girl with black, white, red. And so, if you like zoom out on them, these characters start to kind of run super, especially these two. Like, these two are super similar. You know, and then I don't have the Squid Woman, but she's also super similar to like these two. You know, like two blue girls right there, back to back, who themselves are kind of super similar. So I don't like that there's not too much variety, but I mean there's an adult version of her, which honestly is the better one. They should have just kept Fleur-de-Lis's body instead of doing this like weird, still growing teenager in between state for transformation. That just I honestly think they did that for censorship reasons, because like there's no reason not to just have done the better body.
But for me, there's some
Just
Genshin
kept that as
Impact
permanent.
characters that I like more than Wuthering Waves, and there are some Wuthering Waves characters that are better than Genshin Impact.
Yeah,
The
basically, right? There are some characters better than the other. It all depends on the design and the patch.
only thing that is not subjective here is probably
I can't say one is
with
better than the other. Pretty
expressions of
evenly
the
better and
faces
good
of the characters in
and their
Wuthering
designs.
Waves
To-
between
to
both
me,
games.
to what
That's
I
where
like.
Wuthering Waves is objectively better.
In terms of peak design of a single character, I really like the Wuthering Wave take on Mavuika, and I really like Genshin take on Mavuika. Both of these look extremely attractive and beautiful and greatly designed to me. I don't even know if I can have a favorite picked, you know? Like, I like them both a lot. But lore-wise, Mavuika is more OP than Augusta. Or Wuthering Mavuika is less OP by lore than Genshin Mavuika. I don't know who doesn't see the resemblance. Let's just to point this out.
A faint power, but still one that
You know?
commands attention.
But yeah, so yeah, like these are my two top favorite designs, and therefore I don't have a more favorite than the
But
other.
when you check with the characters
Before
and
Augusta, I
probably
would've
the
said
design
Genshin has
that
the
will make you
must-have favorite
attached to a
design for me,
character,
but they have a
probably the
boost, no?
lore of that character. And I will talk about story and lore in a little bit, but I do think that side
I learned I like
characters
this
with
design
Genshin
when
Impact,
Mavuika
most
number
of them
one
do
came out.
have better lore or
Mavuika number 1 came out. From what I discovered, this design first was actually HSR. What was the name? Himiko? Yeah, that's
Many
Mavuika
insects
number
have a
1.
compulsion to
Then Mavuika
follow the
number 2 is
light.
in Genshin, and 3
Humans
is
are the
in-
same. Except
and
we
this
call that
one.
light hope.
So we got
better
3
backstory
Mavuikas.
than side characters in Wuthering Waves, and some big problems with them.
They
It's
do
a
have some
character like
overlapping,
Arturo or
like
a character
similarity
like
designs
Dungeon still don't
between
have
both games and certain characters.
a story, despite being really loved
this.
by the community in 1.0. Going with the characters kits and the
It's more obvious between HSR and Wuthering, and less obvious between Genshin and Wuthering, because HSR has like also like your Greek mythos type roby characters.
meta and power creep and all that. I do think that if we start with power creep, I think that both games are really close in this.
ZZZ is the one with the most unique designs that I don't see repeating
Instead
too
of
much
confining
in other
themselves to the
games.
heavens, God should broaden
Not-
their
not like-
horizons
not
in
this
the world
close
below.
anyway.
I think that Genshin and Wuthering Waves are the best two games that do that with meta, where they, if they want to power creep or make a character a little bit stronger, they don't just make the older character don't work, which is a problem with Honkai Star Rail or a lot of other gachas. And I think that Genshin and Wuthering Waves both are doing a good job here.
They are both doing a good job here in terms of character kits, but I will say that Genshin's character kits are more in line with what that character can provide for your account, more consistently than Wuthering. I think Gachasmec made a really good video recently pointing out how, like, if you're gonna have a weapon that is behind a premium cost, why is it on the one hand that's kind of free-to-play friendly to not have any power creep at all and you can just use basic weapons, but on the other hand he's comparing two premium weapons and like one for a different character completely is still almost as good as her tailor-made weapon. So then why is it even a weapon that exists? Why wasn't it more? Why doesn't it do more to buff the specific character that it's made for, right? Stuff like that is not very consistent in Wuthering, but in Genshin it seems to be. But I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because if you want all content to be free to play accessible, then I mean, what is even the point of gacha in the first place, or making any of these weapons restricted behind money or in the first place? And we could go into a deeper discussion on how this whole shit is predatory bullshit. But if we just isolate it in a nutshell,
But still,
yeah, I could kind of see like a specific weapon that would boost a specific character should boost that specific character more than a weapon for a different specific character.
But what I want to talk about in detail is the kits of every character. Now here is where I have a problem sometimes with Wuthering Waves, because they sometimes make a kit of a character that is a little bit complex and so good, especially in terms of gameplay. Like for me, this does surpass the Genshin way of making.
So he says it surpasses it. I don't agree. I think that if we're gonna talk about like kits, I don't like that. So in Genshin, you could, as a free-to-play, immediately have access to a reaction like
Many
freeze.
insects have a compulsion to
But in
follow the
Wuthering is
light.
behind a paywall
Humans
of
are the
Carlotta,
same.
right? And you
Except
could
we
argue
call that
that
light
at least Wuthering
hope.
gives you free travel, but travel is kind of paywall behind characters in Genshin, but not really, yeah? Because slightly, very slightly better travel from the like weird animal transformation that Platinum provides is actually very slightly better than what the characters provide. It is slightly better. So you would actually have a better traversal slightly, taking over like the flying bird versus using Chowsku. It's just weird. Same thing for the sharks. The shark
Exploration
monster things.
and
it's like that all
trials.
over. Like the
Adventuring is
the
right up
Yoshi
my
green
alley.
source things are also slightly better than Kenichi or something like that. So it's not really the convenience of accessing it without looking for an animal is really what's more pay-gated rather than the traversal mechanic itself, if you feel me. But I think it's more egregious, not by too much, by a little bit more egregious, because you also don't need to freeze enemies to win against them in the fight. But there was an enemy specifically designed, and both games do the specific design bullshit. But you can like freeze, you know. I think Genshin's bosses are just immune to some of this stuff, so you can't really freeze some enemies outright. But in Wuthering they're not, and so Carlotta's thing is a little more prevalent as a pay-to-win mechanic, where she's the only one who can full freeze enemies, and there's no restriction that she can freeze any type of boss, just full freeze them. And they had like a boss that was specifically way easier because a lot of their mechanics just freeze over and they just don't do them or something like that when you have Carlotta on the team. So shit like that, right? I don't like, and nobody talks about that. Like when people want to glaze one game and shit on the other, they don't do it fairly. They're like, well, Wuthering is better because Genshin monetizes traversal from characters. But I'm here to say not really, and I provided why. And I'm also here to say Wuthering does some other predatory bullshit mechanical pay to win.
is often
making characters.
No, it's not
especially
like
when
either
they
one is
try
better
to
or
make a
worse,
new
right? They both
character.
have their
They
bullshit.
do know how to make a newer character pretty different than older
It
characters.
is. It
and
is.
have
I will
something
say cool that they gave full flight traversal to every account for free. That is not, and you don't have to look for any birds or whatever. You could just have it. That is fucking amazing, right? Traversal of the world is great. I just think the world of Genshin is better, prettier designed than Wuthering. But it's not as easy or convenient to traverse it, whereas Wuthering is not quite as good or pretty as detailed, but it is still very beautiful, it is still very detailed. We're talking minute, hard to notice details, right? And really Renacita really changed it up where it's more close. and
Many
more even
insects
with
have a
Genshin.
compulsion to
And
follow
some
the
parts
light.
even surpass
And
Genshin.
humans are the same.
Depending where, but it's not a
Except we call
lot.
that
It's not
light
everything
hope.
surpasses Genshin, right? There's a lot of like bullshit emptiness, design with lack of detail. But there are these like set pieces that are incredible in Wuthering, so it does even it out. But I would say I overall prefer the design of Genshin maps, but the traversal of Wuthering overall, just because flight is a sick thing to have just free access to, and the straight up flight, it just has this like weird stamina bar to it. It's not unlimited flight, but it
you
is
and
flight.
also have so much
That is a
depth
better
to
bar
their
than
cast.
what
But
you
I do
find
think that the
themselves
problem
ahead
is
of
that there
God
is
should
something
broaden their
that cool
horizons
games
and
wasn't
world below.
really aware of at the start, and I think that they weren't expecting to do that, is that every character is either exclusively heavy attack oriented or resonance liberation oriented or resonance skill oriented, which is kinda kills
Exploration
the
and
difference
trials.
between all of those. Like, what's the point of having
Adventuring is
resonance
right up
liberation
my alley.
damage and resonance skill damage when you
Yeah.
know that some characters are just gonna use one of those. You cannot just build a character around just skill damage to maximize their damage of their skill, or
Yeah, that's
just
another
resonance liberation damage
That's another thing to talk about, right? Like Genshin's builds are actually easier to pull
to
off.
see a big number with their ultimate and probably create so many different strategies with characters. But I see why they didn't do that, because it will probably make characters so much harder to balance. But this doesn't deny the fact that this is kind of pointless now, and that they are just, you know, that the new character will use only one way of doing damage. And you can see that it's kind of different with 1.0 characters. Some of them do use different ways of scaling their damage, and I didn't have a problem if it was with a little bit of few characters, but it's happening with almost every character, and I was like, what's the point of you?
So I do want to point out, like, he's talking about some. I want to bring something else to the attention, but it's kind of in a similar way, right? Character kits, trades, detail, building character, using characters, all that stuff. So HSR has this problem too, but basically, Wuthering gives you 240 and another 40 extra thingies, right? That like also recharge. So you really have this much stamina, like 240 plus 480, which is 700. So you have 700 energy to use on your characters, right? And people criticize Genshin for not having a system like this, but there's an issue, there's a glaring issue that's not talked about. I think it's on purpose. They just want to convince, but it would actually be gaslight, right? Because it's not exactly honest, but they would want to gaslight the Genshin devs into putting a thing like this into the game. And I could see why, because it's so much better, so much more convenient to have more energy. But again, we could also just talk about the overarching problem with having energy bullshit in the first place in a single player game. Like, fuck all this, delete it, just let us grind unlimited, yeah? I always put this on every survey Genshin. I stopped doing those surveys because it's clearly ignored to oblivion. Because they care about their predatory money on people topping up this whenever they want to build a character way more than they want a better designed game. So if the surveys are useless bullshit and they just want to figure out data on the psychological impact of how to collect more money, fuck the survey, right? I don't care how rewarding the survey is trying to be. I don't care if it's giving 3 more gems. I just don't care about doing a survey if they're not collecting the data I want them to collect. It's going against me, the customer, and that's not benefiting me, right? So I don't do the surveys, but I used to do surveys, and I used to tell them, fuck the energy system. Fuck is all this. Just let us grind permanently. I don't care about the resin. But since they do have resin, we should talk about some things that are not honestly discussed. This is here
I wanna have something to finish again.
because in reality, it takes like 6 times more shit to get a character maxed out here than it does in Genshin. You have normal attack, resonance skill, forte skill, resonance liberation, intro skill, outro skill. Granted is granted. But, you know, you have these things. Each one of these needs to be activated with resources. I could actually showcase this better on a character that doesn't have stuff. Stuff that somebody doesn't have. Oh, perfect, Rover. You need stuff for Rover, right? Every single one of these needs it. This is a weekly boss. You can do a weekly boss 3 times. But you cannot do every weekly boss 3 times. You have to pick your 3 weekly boss runs for the whole week, period. And you're done. That's it. And you need it for every single skill after 6. Once this hits 6, it's gonna win the weekly boss. 1 weekly boss item. 1, 2, 3, 5, right? 5 times to get them to 8. 5 more times to get them to 9. 5 more times to get them to 10. So that's 15 weekly boss materials here. At least. You can only, at least on my world level right now, I can only get, I think like 9. So I need 15 to max out a character, but I can only get 9. And that's not even talking about these 5, 6, because this also needs it. So it's not, you know, it's no longer 15, it's plus 6, so now we got 21 weekly boss items I need. That's 3 weeks of bosses, right? For one single character. 3 weeks of bosses. Nothing you can do, you have to have these. And your characters are not actually gonna hit too hard or be too super useful until at least level 9 and all of these. So you have to get things to 9 and you have to get all these passive shit unlocked. This is a lot of weekly bosses when you have 3 or 4 characters. You probably want 6 characters built because they have some modes where you need 2 separate teams or some like bullshit energy, extra separate energy system called like the personal character energy, where the more you use them, the lower this energy drops, and when it reaches 0, you can't continue using them anymore, and this like Tower of Adversity content they have. So you need a different character who's also really good at DPS if you want to grind that endgame stuff. So you need this done multiple times, right? So let's see, she has some 10s, so 7 needs 1. Right, so I need 3 more times. So I need 9 here. And then she can hit 10 out of 10. But I also have to do this with Augusta. So from 6 to 7 you need 1 already, right? So that's 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 4 of these. 4 times, that's actually 20 of them that you need for the skills. And 6 more. So it's actually 26 that you need. You actually need 26 of these. And you only get 9 per week. And you have more than 1 character, at least at my world level, which is granted a lot of players, but some have reached the higher level, so maybe you get 12, you know, maybe you get 14 per week. It's still not nowhere near as easy to do. And so you have like 10 times more shit to level where compared to Genshin you really don't. So that's why, and that's why they have this extra energy bit. But there is a second reason. That second reason is the domain stuff in Genshin, I think is 20 resin. But here you're gonna spend between 40 and 60 on average for one thing that you do. Versus Genshin's much cheaper approach. And you can do double, but it's gonna cost like 80 or something for this. Like you could do double rewards, you're dropping 80 of your resin right away. 80 of your bullshit energy. I'm gonna just call it bullshit energy. Bullshit this. So the bullshit energy, you're gonna use 80 here, and in Genshin you're gonna use 40 for double drops. So Genshin is kinda half cost for same progress versus Wuthering. Where it evens out is you can now, at least with 2 point something, I don't think it's 2.0, but like 2.1 onwards, you can literally go to these things. I'm not sure if they're also weekly or something, but they're kind of these like combat situations where you don't pay any energy. You fight the monsters, you get, I'm not sure you get their actual drops, but you get to kill them, you get to drop the echo itself, and that's your artifact slot set. And you can do these for free now for characters. I don't think it's these. I think it's something else. It's a different icon. I don't remember where it is or how to find it or what it looks like, but suffice
Instead
it
of
to say,
confining
you go and
themselves to the
fight it. I
heavens,
think an icon kind of
God
looks
should
like this.
broaden their horizons in the
It's a
world
kind of
below.
tacit field situation mark. Echo challenge? No, Echo challenge is something else, right? I think Echo challenge is something else. Maybe it's that. It's one of these. You go
Exploration
there
and
and you can Google
trials.
this whenever you want to build a character and whatever. But you go to them
Adventuring is
and they
right
drop
up
you
my
the entire
alley.
set and you don't pay anything. And you can level them if you have materials, of course. But materials you do gotta pay for, and that's where like it's double the expensive of Genshin to do. 1-to-1, relatively speaking. In Genshin you do have to spend getting artifacts, but again, in Genshin artifacts themselves translate into XP as they drop. Even at level 0 they are already XP, and you can even convert them into more XP in another way. I could showcase this as well. If we go to artifacts, the artifact tab here, you have salvage, and you can see even zeros translate into artifact XP. You cannot do that on Wuthering. If it has no levels to it, it provides 0 XP value, so even though you can farm them for free, you cannot level them for free. Here you're paying for the artifact or the XP simultaneously together in one, which is why I think overall Genshin is actually cheaper for resin use per how much progress you get per resin than Wuthering is. Why? Well, besides the artifacts, and Maluka is a bad example, but what's a good example? Okay, they're all great examples, but you want Mavuka to hit hard, you're only gonna level 2 things. You don't need them at 10, you could leave them at 8. You could do 8-8.
The blade.
So you only need like 1 weekly boss fight 1 time or 2 times, so you only need like 2 weeks of boss fights. And you can get these things to 8 or 10. The talents here are automatically unlocked as the character ascension happens, so at least leveling up your character has some meaning to it. Unlike Wuthering, where no matter how much you level them up, they don't get any free new talent unlocks things that are already at max level. They are this bullshit. They are like this. I have level 90, level 80 rover, level 90 rover,
Let me
level
be
80
there for
rover,
everyone.
and nothing
toward
got
our
unlocked
shared
for free.
future, leaving the
This
past
isn't
behind.
a free unlock. This always comes activated on every character, even if they're level 1. You know? You always get this item. But none of these things unlock, so what's the point of even leveling a character if you get nothing for it other than small base stat boost that gets a bigger boost out of percentage-based items, I guess, in equipment, right? That's the only reason, that's the only point. In Genshin, you get an extra bit of power for just leveling them, even if you're not doing the talents, you get the passives. Also in Genshin, a lot of characters you can straight up ignore basic attack because it does nothing. So you only really have 2 things to level, sometimes just 1 thing to level. Like, you go to Bennett, you don't need anything except this. And he's a fully kitted out, fully built character because that's all he does, that's his main use, and that's all he needs to ever do. Just pop the ulti and that's it. And you only really need to level this thing, and he's a fully built, completed character. Like, how nuts is that? Like, Genshin lets you do shit like that. Same thing with, honestly, Kachina, I think, is in the same boat. I leveled mine up just for fun, but you don't even need to level her talents to anything because she's just a Cinder City machine when she first released. All you needed. You don't even need to level the artifact. I mean, granted, if you don't level anything, she could be like really weak in HP and get one shot, but yeah, you really didn't need to. Like, you could level the HP one, I guess, get her like HP percent stuff. You know, there's a good example. There must be HP plus HP percent. I know one of these had it. There it is. You could get like HP percent plus HP on her and just level 1 item to 20 and that's it. She has full Cinder City and she needs nothing. She can just be level 20 because I think you need one of the talents essentially or something. It's really quick and easy to do. Genshin usually provides you first talent level up thing for free from like 20 to 40 or whatever. You go from 1 to 40 for free without any resin cost because they tend to provide character ascension materials in the trial thing that you do for like the first ascension. You get enough from just that. I believe that's how that works. And so she's fully like they release characters that are instantly fully built and ready to go. Rarely, albeit, but it does happen. And so for the way you can build her, you can literally just not do any levels or anything. Just put Cinder City on her and that's it. You'll spend a little bit of resin getting the pieces. You don't need any specific stats in them. You literally need any random 5 pieces and you're done. Any random 4 pieces, sorry. You don't even need 5 pieces, right? It's a 4-piece set. You just get any random 4-piece set and throw it on her from this set. And you're done. Literally straight up done. She does everything. She's extreme support power creep in that way, where she needs 0 investment to be at full kitted out support levels. Just for that Cinder City, of course, like actual 5-star limited characters are better because their own huge kit, full levels, etc. plus Cinder City plus all this nonsense on top stacks way better, sure, but that was just an example of like how nice they can be sometimes when it comes to resin efficiency. Where Wuthering does not have really good resin efficiency niceness at all. You only have 3 characters, but each one of these 3 characters is like 3 separate Genshin characters to level, right? That's how Wuthering be. Oh, so like nobody talks about this, but that's an issue. That's a huge issue. Like things need to be more bullshit energy efficient, and they're not.
Mobility than the Genshin Impact one.
So
it also got more
it
elements
to
to
build
it.
on
But
Genshin
the
than
reason
Wuthering,
why you
much
cannot
easier.
just objectively say that Genshin Impact has worse combat like a lot of people are saying is because the elemental system and the reactions are executed in a way that makes the gameplay fun for different reasons. It's very fun to do that strategy of creating a good combo between characters by using the elements. And the fact that changing your build a little bit for some characters can change their teams a lot. For example, let's take the Rider Shogun, where you can use her either as an electro charge character or change her build completely for the Hyper Bloom teams. And I'm one of the people that does have so much fun with that reaction system, and I could say that the reasons or the way I enjoy.
Yeah, I brought this up before. Yeah, Miko, right? And they put stuff off field, they fuck off the field, but the characters that replace them are there still using the off-field characters' visual spectacle stuff. But it's really nice. It works really well. And you don't really get stuff like that often in Wuthering. There's, again, just in Wuthering is the exception, and Genshin is the norm.
Oh, the Wuthering Waves gameplay is different than the way I enjoy the Genshin Impact gameplay. Now, if you want to get personal and say which one I prefer, I do prefer the Wuthering Waves gameplay because I do like the faster paced gameplay. I do like the
It says faster paced gameplay, but it's actually slower to kill enemies in Wuthering than it is in Genshin per second of combat with how much damage you do per hit or something like that.
That you can
On
parry
average,
and use
player,
more
not
of your
whales.
skill
I don't know
with the
whales,
bosses, because sometimes for me the reaction system will get old, especially when you use the same teams. And when you talk about the characters and everything like that, it's kind of that the game gets.
I did mention this before, but Wuthering gets just as old, just the same. If you're spamming the same skill, the same attack constantly, the same rotation, the same units, it's the same thing, right? It's just Genshin lets you kill way faster, thereby being slightly better and funner in the combat from just that alone.
It's easier and it's too much at some point. So for me,
The more difficulty players ask for in games, and when they actually get it, the more we realize, oh, it's just another way to monetize, pay to win, or gate us in some way to pad out like gameplay timing for their like corporate CEO investor nonsense.
I do prefer the Wuthering Waves gameplay, but I had to emphasize on the point of the reaction system just to be fair. It is also really satisfying to see that your character that is probably a pyro character does 50,000 damage, but when they make a melt reaction, they do 100,000. It's really satisfying when you do that and amplify your damage so much in a crazy way with some of those reactions. Now, since we're still in the gameplay, let us talk about these characters and kits.
So that's what I wanted to talk about. Let's get back to kits.
There's two games that do that with meta, where they, if they want to power creep or make a character a little bit stronger, they don't just make the older character don't work, which is a problem with Honkai Star Rail or a lot of other gachas. And I think that Genshin and Wuthering Waves both are doing a good job here. But what I want to talk about in detail is the kits of every character. Now here is where I have a problem sometimes with Wuthering Waves, because they sometimes make a kit of a character that is a little bit complex and so good, especially in terms of gameplay. Like, try to make a new character, they do know how to make a newer character pretty different than older characters and have something new, and also have so much depth to their kits. But I do think that the problem with that is that there is something that Kuro Games wasn't
unique animations
really
are cool,
aware of at the start, and
sure.
I think that they weren't expecting to do that, is that every character is either exclusively heavy attack oriented or resonance liberation oriented or resonance skill oriented, which is kind of
the orientation is also
the difference between all of those. Like, what's the point of having resonance
you know
liberation
if it's
damage
heavy
and
attack,
resonance
just
skill
put on,
damage
like,
when you
heavy
know that
attack
some
buffer
characters
on
are
the
just
team.
gonna use one of those. You cannot just build a character around just skill damage to maximize their damage of their skill, or just resonance liberation damage to see a big number with their ultimate, and probably create so many different strategies with characters. But I see why they didn't do that, because it will probably make characters so much harder to balance. But this doesn't deny the fact that this is kind of pointless now, and that they are just, you know, that the new character will use only one way of doing damage. And you can see that it's kind of different with 1.0 characters. Some of them do use different ways of scaling their damage, and I didn't have a problem if it was with a little bit of few characters, but it's happening with almost every character. And I was like, what's the point of using my resonance liberation to do resonance skill damage? It's kind of annoying a little bit, but it's not that big of a problem. Of course, you still can just build your character in that way. It probably a little bit
Yeah, so basically what he's saying, it's kind of annoying that you have to have for each individual single character their own individual perfect rotation, not like the full team, but you have to have, because like I explained earlier, like a crap ton of skills to level. That also means that a crap ton of different things they gotta do to optimize their own DPS rotation. Like a Gusta, you have to go, I think you have to like attack, then you have to like do this thing, then you have to attack some more, then you have to do skill, then you have to do another skill, then you have to do like ultimate thing, then you have to do some other skill thing, and then you have to do this guy again, then you have to do skills after him. You know, like you gotta do all this like stuff to get her to ultimate damage mode, just to switch to the next character, just to get her like ultra intro stuff done, and so that the next character can get a little boost out of her. You have to do it in like, there's like a perfect way to do it, the string of actions in specific sequence for her to do optimal damage and optimally convert her buff to the next character who will also have optimal rotation and optimal damage. It's way too like pinpoint, scientific, nerdy, absolutely must do in a specific way for min-maxed attacking, versus where Genshin doesn't really have that, and you can kind of have more fun with it and be more free about how you attack with who, right? You just need certain elements to react together, and that's basically it. It's easier to accomplish because it's more understandable in the brain. It's not a massive mathematical essay problem. It's like, well, just have Mavui because the skill happened first so that she has field damage while other characters go through their rotations. And their rotations are also just pop their skill and switch. It's like, it's more simple, but simple is good in this case, right? Because less is more.
limited with some of the builds, but it's something to talk about, you know?
And what I'm trying, the main point of that, we forgot to say that part, is that less is more, because you're less screwed over by the game and the devs when less is more, and you're able
Instead
to
of
do
confining themselves to the
maximum
heavens,
output and your
God should
damage.
broaden their
Instead
horizons
of,
in
you
the
know,
world below.
even slightly off in your rotation, you don't have maximum DPS, and now you take way longer to kill the thing. That's the part that's important. Taking way longer to kill the thing because it's too convoluted.
No. Now, other than that, another problem is how they explain the kits. Now finally is good, but before that some of the numbers weren't so clear. Some of the ways they explain some abilities for some characters is a little bit hard to understand.
Genshin has the
but
essay
now
problem
kind
too,
of fixed that, and you can see with so many new characters they
definitely
put
not
a
as
wall
bad
of
in
text explaining everything, and you can actually,
and I guess
when
he's
there's
saying
a
they
different
fixed it,
there,
but I
you
still
can
get confused
click on
reading
it
some
and
stuff.
it will be explained. I really like that. And when we move to Genshin Impact, by explaining kits, I would say that Genshin Impact is still better here, but now Wuthering Waves is close, but Genshin can make a really complex kit for a character and have a very good explanation for it. And of course, you can have characters that are HP oriented or attack oriented or everything like that. So the reason why
and again, in Wuthering it's like the norm, but in Genshin having like a weird character kit is an exception to the norm, which is the way you want it, right? You want every character to be crazy hard or difficult, or just they're messed up and you can't build them correctly because they have like split scaling, which also is an exception that happens. But overall, you just want one specific thing that you can specifically understand.
complained about it in WoWa because it was created like that because it had the potential but didn't use it, you know? And you can find that Genshin does have more variety, especially because of the elemental system and using the elemental mastery. As I said before, some characters can change their build by using elemental mastery or using the build with attack and great damage and things like that. So this is one of those that
I find skill spectacle up to Augusta in Wuthering Way wasn't as spectacular as the spectacles in Genshin, but some things were really cool even up to Augusta. Again, they're more the exceptions, but you had some really cool spectacle things like the wine girl that uses wines. What was her name? Let me see. I don't remember their names too well. Amelia?
Would you
Yeah,
like
there's like
a fun
a lot
game
of
between the two of us?
Too many of like samey things in Wuthering in terms of design, like I explained earlier with colors and even names sometimes. But yeah, her vines come out and she does this like cool spinny stuff, and she's all this like so almost like pole dancer type of stuff. It's pretty cool. Like those spectacle animations are fun.
The power to split
Archetia's, when she transforms into her better version, are also fun. But even before that, like her attacks are all over the place, kind of spectacle. And these two are really good. Rolova and Augusta, which like later stuff was really good. Really full of spectacle, and they had a few exceptions before that. Like, what's his name?
Pick. You won't regret.
He as a standard banner was really fun. He had a pretty strong spectacle. She did too. But it's not. It's not everybody. It's not like let's just design everybody to always look cool. Like Genshin tries to more than WoW on this part. WoW really puts their all in like not even all 5 stars, but mostly just the new limited 5 stars. Where Genshin is like everybody needs to have something cool that they do, and it has to look nice and has to have spectacle to it. I think Genshin tries more on the spectacle visual side. Just overall, that's their theme, right? Genshin's theme is more spectacle coolness. Wuthering is more fun, fast-paced, more complex.
it's unfair to just say that this is objectively better. No, I just give you the good and bad side in every game.
They're
You can choose
different
accordingly.
enough that they're
Now
not
let us talk
too
about
much
the
better
world.
words than
Again,
the
of course,
other.
I'm not gonna talk
Again,
about
I
how the
personally
environment
prefer
looks because that
Genshin's take.
depends on you. I do think that both games are visually so beautiful. The only thing that you can say that Wuthering Waves is better than Genshin in is probably that the Genshin graphics are a little dated compared to the Wuthering Waves graphics.
So I'm not
Many
sure about
insects
that.
have a compulsion
When
to
I see
follow
games
the
side by
light.
side, there are areas
humans
where
are the
one
same.
looks better than the other, and then
Except
where
we
the other
call
looks
that
better
light
than the first
hope.
one, right? It depends what area you're in and how much development time it had. like if you compare the 1.0 areas for both games, yes, Genshin's is actually a little more detailed, a little prettier. But I would say Wuthering is not an Unreal 5, it's an Unreal 4 game. So it's already a dated engine. Genshin's Unity, better for performance, but I find that UE5 is just makes both Unity and UE4 more dated. But Unity, I think, can update, and they can do those updates in real time to the game as well. I am not sure Wuthering can ever go to UE5 without significant work. So there's that.
Because, of course, Wuthering Waves is newer, but we cannot deny the fact that Wuthering Waves is actually trying to make the graphics better with every update, especially
we
with the
have them
latest
side by
update
side
they
now,
created,
right?
the
Like
Ultra
the
Setting
video
update.
again,
They
but
made the
don't look that
graphics
different.
even better with the newer version. But for Genshin Impact, they weren't really making the graphics better, they were working on the same
They
engine,
already have
which
really
has a
good
good and a
stylized
bad
art and
side,
graphics
and we
in
will
Genshin, so they
immediately
don't
talk
need
about
to
that
make them
good
better.
and bad side. So, of course, the bad side is that the graphics look a little bit worse than Genshin Impact, but the good side is that the optimization for Genshin Impact is way better than the Wuthering Waves optimization.
It's true,
Waves has a
Wuthering
big
actually crashes
problem
on me
with
sometimes.
optimizing the game. I made a
Where
video that
Genshin,
is
not
talking
really.
about this in detail. Person A has a problem with the graphics in that certain version, and person B has the same hardware but doesn't have a problem, so he calls him a liar. In the next version, person A doesn't have a problem anymore with performance, but person B does now have the problem. And with the fact that Wuthering Waves is trying to make the game more appealing with every new update, where Genshin tries to make the game more appealing but creating
I have to say I
more
haven't had an
different
update that really
environments
made me
look
consider
good,
performance
but
or
Wuthering Waves tries
optimization
to
on
make
either game,
new
to be
different
honest.
environments,
I can
but
only
also
say
try
that
to
for me, Wuthering had a few crashes randomly that never repeated, versus Genshin having never really crashed in my period. So that is a huge point. In terms of graphics, they look different, stylized art, but they don't look like one is more dated or worse than the other. I just overall, I do think I probably prefer Genshin's graphics generally. I just like the popping color stuff more than the way Wuthering does it. The world is more vibrant and less doom and gloom in Genshin overall, and that's just my personal taste preference.
to make the
stuff.
graphics better, which, as I said, is good and bad at the same time. It's good to make the graphics better, but they have to do so much work with optimization because it's so hard to optimize the game, especially that the game is on Unreal Engine, so they have a harder road
He didn't
with this.
specify
But since we're
Unreal
still talking
4,
about
which
the
I think
world, let
should
us go
be
and talk about the
specified. It's more
open
fair to
world
remember
experience and
that
the
it's number 4.
exploration. So, if we start with Genshin Impact gives you so many ways of exploring the game, especially with every
This is
different
true.
region. Every region will give
This
you
is true.
different
Like immediately as he shows off a little clip like this, immediately you see the huge difference between how combat works, where you kind of sit on one character and you don't really see differences. Like one character jumps in, the other one jumps out, but in Genshin it's like so much prettiness and poppiness and color and effects, and like the character that's off-field is still doing their thing while the on-field character is doing their thing in like unison, and it's all like extra. It's a little bit more interesting to watch Genshin for that reason.
ways to explore, different gadgets, has different puzzles, of course.
And yes, different puzzles, gadgets. I do think Genshin puzzles are a little better, a little more interesting, a little more varied, and reactions feel more real-time real versus how Wuthering does it. Like for example, 1.0 stuff in Genshin, any pyro character can like burn the little wooden things and free the chest. But because Wuthering is a little more budget, is a little bit more Genshin at home in terms of these specific puzzles in isolation again. You can't just burn their lines off, you have to find the right item to trigger the burn effect, even though you have a pyro character, which I think is called Fusion or something in Wuthering. And I'm like, that's like fake fire, it doesn't really do anything to the environment, right? If I still have to find an environmental fire object to do this with. So that kind of stuff a little bit annoyed me. It's not the craziest nitpick or whatever, it's a bit a niche nitpick, but it's annoying to see that like once you start noticing the little details that lack in detail, you know that other things are likely to lack in detail and attention. But I guess they proved me a little bit wrong. 2.0 is way prettier, better and more detailed than 1.0 stuff. But Genshin is also way more prettier and detailed than later versions.
You have to collect chests for the currencies.
so I think
Characters are
overall,
important in
Genshin
the exploration,
keeps
so of course
keeping
you can
better
use some
puzzles
characters so that you can
than
make it easier. You can climb almost everything in the game. Sometimes you would have some random interactions with NPC that
I
can
found
make you
things
do
that you can't
that
collect
one
for some
puzzle,
stupid
or
reason,
you would
but
have a random world quest that if you do, you will open a new place in the world and you can explore it. So the open world experience with Genshin Impact is a real...
Yeah, I think if you're up for having paywall traversal and characters, you still have access to the traversal, you can still climb walls and whatever, but it's slow and annoying, right? You're only really great... You have great traversal in all regions, except the first two. The later regions offer you a way to like click on little balls for teleportation and ziplining around the map. But for the first two regions, you don't have that good of a traversal option. So you need like 5.0 Netlin characters to have fun exploring, quick, convenient, and easy in the first two regions, which is Liyue and Mondstadt. But those regions are quite pretty, and it was quite fun to just hoof it on foot and see all the stuff in a slow-paced way just as well. And they were designed that way on purpose. The map was much smaller. You had more time to enjoy scenery and stuff because you had less stuff to run around between of. And so it made sense for that then at 1.0, right? Because they had to pad out your time and somehow and give you beauty to enjoy all at once together. And so I think they accomplished that pretty fair and pretty well. It's good. It's a good take. It was done well for what they needed it to be. But now, you know, if you have pay to win traversal unlocked from the Netlin characters, everything is easier to explore. You don't have to look for any of these little balls to traverse. You don't have to run around slowly in Mondstadt. You know, you could just throw on your Mabuiko or Chasko or whoever and just fly around and just drive around and get from place to place really fast. Yeah. And I think I personally like that there's a unique kit to a character that has near 100% uptime on traversal that is unique to that character. I love rollerblades, like that is my shit. I was like, wow, that's so cool, rollerblading character, oh my god, let's go, right? Like to me that's fun, even if it's not free-to-play player friendly, right? But I would rather that games like this make monetization out of cosmetics and like traversal bullshit. It just makes traversal more convenient and faster versus monetizing more important stuff like actual progression and combat, right? Like do this is way less egregious, this is way better because it doesn't actually screw anyone over and it's still fun and unique to the character versus like, oh, you cannot do as much damage if you don't pay us money for this character, right? Like, that's worse. So if I had to pick one of the two, it's definitely the stuff that doesn't affect your performance and gameplay where it really matters.
Exploration
like
and
skins
trials.
and traversal.
Adventuring is right
a
up
lot
my
of this,
alley.
I realize a lot of my criticism right now is basically like low-key glazing up DNA to at Night Abyss. Like all the stuff I've complained about over the years and all the surveys I sent to Genshin and all the stuff I don't want all these gacha games monetizing. Always on deaf ears and then do it Night Abyss and it's like, yeah, we got you. All the stuff you want, yeah, we're literally doing it all. I'm like, wow, insane. So yeah, I mean, this is why I'm doing this video now, because I could have done it without knowing that anything would ever happen. I see a light at the end of the tunnel that made me want to like finally do this video, but with more info available to me in the industry overall, which is nice. Like, it's nice to know that the bullshit will one day end.
Really good,
If we
solid,
let it, if we
open world
choose it, if we
experience
support
for
the
a
right
gacha game,
companies and
and
the
for
right
so
games
long
and the right
it was the
practices.
best. But here is
we
where I
build
would probably
hardware
say
wallets
that
together as a
Wuthering
community.
Waves really is just better in almost every single thing here. I said almost because there's some little things that is still not better in Wuthering, but almost everything in the open world experience and especially exploration is better in Wuthering Waves.
Like,
because
again,
what I just
traversal
said
itself
for
is
Genshin
better.
Impact
I don't know
does
about
exist in Wuthering
the
Waves,
things you
but
do
is
during
better
exploration
with
are
more
better,
quality of
in my
life changes, faster,
They're good, but they're not
easier,
better.
and
I'm not saying they're
probably, I would
terrible,
say,
not
less
garbage.
annoying and less
Like,
reliable.
the stuff you do is still amazing in Wuthering, like, by all means. It's just if we really have to pick, like, the 1% what's better, yeah, Genshin's things that you find and do are better, even if both are amazing. One is slightly better.
Flying on the characters.
Traversal in Wuthering is slightly better, or a lot better depending on your Genshin account investment. Like, I know the flight is way, way better and easier, and it's just amazing for traversal. But just flying forward to me is a little boring. I actually like Genshin's approach to characters. Unique traversal, even though it's not a popular opinion. It would be nice if they didn't pay gate the traversal, but
Many
again,
insects have a compulsion
if they
to
didn't
follow
pay
the
gate,
light.
because the problem is they
Humans
pay
are the
gating both
same.
power and traversal.
Except we
If
call
they didn't
that
pay
light.
gate power and it was just traversal, it would be okay. Most regions give you the ability to traverse just fine anyway. Yeah, it's annoying that it's behind pay gate, but is it hella fun? Hell yeah, it's hella fun. Am I gonna enjoy that the character I already wanted to pull and wanted to enjoy comes with an extra benefit of fun traversal? Yeah, hell yeah, and it's definitely less boring to look at than just flying around straight, you know? So it's kind of like there's like two people in me arguing. One is like, yeah, you're just gonna get this character anyway because you enjoy them. Yeah, but it sucks that they had to do the traversal this way, but it's still not as bad as power. But they are doing both anyway, so it's still bad.
Especially with 2.0, with
But
when
both
we
games
saw
are
in
guilty of
Renacita, we
this.
can literally fly and do whatever we want and explore
Both
in
games
every
are
way we
guilty
want.
of
And
monetizing
with
bullshit.
the world and how they designed it
Power.
in a good way that supports flying. Flight system is a really good system.
Flight
in this
system
game.
is
It really
clearly
changed the game a lot.
superior,
It
no
made
matter
the
my
exploration
personal enjoyment
way
aside,
better.
yes.
And the way they
Flight system
make
is
their
absolutely the
new
superior way to
regions
travel.
and their new zones is improving a lot, and it's actually kind of a step up with every open world gacha now, and even in open world games in general. Especially when you see the problem with the fact that yes, you can climb anything in Genshin Impact, but in WoA you can climb and run in the wall. That's without talking about the fact that you can fly, you know? So the mobility with the gameplay is helping the Wuthering Waves just utilize better open world experience.
I always think of it like this. Genshin is just a planet with higher gravity than Wuthering. And so if they both existed in the same universe, Wuthering allows for things like running on the walls and flying, without like heavy vehicles or whatever, and heavy power, because they're just a much lighter gravity world. First place.
Now, probably the only thing that Genshin does have a little better for now is that a lot of the puzzles in Genshin Impact that they're probably a little harder, but I think they are made a little bit better than what we have in Wuthering Waves. Wuthering Waves does have some cool puzzles.
I don't know about a little bit. I would say they're medium levels better than what's in Wuthering. Of course, not everything. There's some good stuff in Wuthering, but in general,
I want to have some grilled fish again.
it's like more medium than a little bit better. Medium levels better. Especially when they're really well themed for the region and like
Exploration and
and
trials.
like not just the region you have,
Adventuring
but also
is
the
right up my
region
alley.
within region, so like desert related stuff or like jungle related stuff.
Puzzles, by the way, that doesn't mean that the puzzles in WoA are bad. Especially, I do like that puzzle with Renacita of the colors and things like that. But I do think that Genshin Impact does have better puzzles than Wuthering Waves, and that's probably the one point that Genshin is better still with the open world experience and the exploration. But the thing is, this is probably not objective because some people do not like puzzles and they do want simpler puzzles. But even when we say simpler, some of them are simple in Genshin Impact, but they are more fun, you know? Now, let's move on to storytelling and lore. I will try to really differentiate between lore and storytelling because I really have a way different opinion in both of them. Because I do think that the storytelling with Wuthering Waves, especially after 1.2, the storytelling with WoA really does exceed what Genshin can do easily. And I'm here talking about the way it's told, the way they...
Oh my god. We have to talk about this in more detail. Genshin's Paimon is cancer. It needs to shut up forever. MC needs to be able to speak all of their lines forever, all the time. If Paimon speaks with voice, MC must respond with voice and have an organic, actual, natural conversation. As much as I stopped liking Infinity Nikki, this one aspect is amazing, because Nikki is voiced for every single aspect of her journey. But if Momo talks, which isn't that often, he actually has cool things to say, and the response dynamic between MC and mascot character, which a lot of these games have to do, is done really well in Infinity Nikki. And it is, to some degree, okay in Wuthering. I still don't like it as much, because MC is still too silent too often for some stupid reason. Infinity Nikki is really the pinnacle of that right now, right? If you have to have a talking bullshit mascot doing bullshit talking, it's the really Infinity Nikki way. Persona 5 also. They have Morgana.
Instead of confining themselves to the heavens,
nobody's silenced for
God
the sake of
should broaden
Morgana
their
speak.
horizons in the world
Morgana
below.
isn't put on a pinnacle, highest possible, tallest possible mountain hot top point of view, and just everybody else shut up. I'm the most important thing in existence in the multiverse, and you all listen to me as I speak and no one else speaks, and I'm so important I take the voice of MC and shut it down completely for the rest of their existence, which I'm immortal, so for the rest of their existence, right? It's not none of that. That's how Genshin died, and it's horrible. But if and there was one or two instances where Paimon and MC actually speak together and to each other, and it came off so good and organic. I was like, why don't they just do this way forever? Just fuck the silence bullshit. And I also truly hate both games with this Wuthering. Actually, I think Nikki also does this, but all these games have the attention checker problem, where you cannot just organically enjoy a cutscene. Little dialogue sounds have to come up as the dialogue screen with the subtitle switches over to the next part, right? And I think Wuthering maybe doesn't have it as egregious or at all. But the thing they do is they stop until you select an option, and your MC is already silent, but you still need to select an option that is completely arbitrary. It doesn't actually change what you say or the response you get. It's like a fake option for the sake of being extremely super transparently fake. Just check if you're still there in front of the screen, paying attention or not. And this is the stupidest fucking thing ever. I do not want to be pressing a button to select an arbitrary choice that matters not and does not even produce a voice from the MC when they pick it. Just let the thing roll organically and let them just speak. Period. It's the worst thing about Genshin storytelling. The lore is amazing, the lore is great, probably better than Wu, huh? Wuthering lore, I don't know, it's weirdly convoluted. This is the same problem I have with HSR when they start going into like gods and dimensions and beings and time loops and timelines, and
many
you have
insects
the
have a
beings of
compulsion to
memory and
follow the
spirit,
light.
and it all gets just
Humans
so
are the
insanely
same.
stupid that it's like, why
Except
is this
we
even
call
a
that
thing
light
anymore?
hope.
What do you mean beings of dreams and souls and whatever that can just teleport through whatever, and they're not even gods. There's also gods that make all this stuff, and it's like, come on, like enough with the Kingdom Hearts Marvel level bullshit already. Like, Jesus. I'm tired of these alternate dimensions and timelines collapsing on each other all the time, creating weird nonsense left and right. That's kind of how I feel about Wuthering. Genshin did this a little bit, but they're more or less like stable, singular timeline, proper storytelling right now, and proper lore, which is why it's more understandable, and therefore I enjoy it way better, and I think it's the better lore. But the way it's told in the story is so stupid, so ungodly stupid. I hate Paimon. I just hate it.
The characters talk, the amount of the animations, the length of that story, the amount of important
More
things
cutscenes,
with
less
lore or
yap
story
sessions
that you
also.
can tell us in 1 hour. Especially that Genshin did embrace the problem of Paimon, where she does explain to you what happened.
Oh my
again
god,
and
like a
again.
child, and
Although it's
over-explained,
a
and
little
second
bit
time
useful
explained, and third time
sometimes, but
explained.
rarely useful. You just can go back to what they said. With the storytelling, even with when Wu
It's
has
insane
a
how
weak
insanely
point or a
stupid
weak
Paimon
place
thing
with
is.
story, you can skip skip it and have it summarized, which of course still doesn't exist in Genshin. And even with the writing of the story, it really got way better in Wuthering Waves now, having some good plot twist, having some, you know, a really good experience when you just play it. But now let me move on to lore, because that's where I have the exact opposite opinion. Yes, now you can tell that I always said that Genshin has better lore, but let us talk about the way it's presented. Because in Genshin Impact, there's so many books and so many things that you can explore and read, and every single, I don't know, fruit has like a huge wall of text that explains how it came from this world or something like that. The foundation of the world of Genshin, you know, the way they wrote the story
more
and the way it's still going, although it does have its problems, of course, is way better than Wuthering Waves. But the problem with this is that it's not accessible for most people.
Yeah,
People
that's
do
also
not like
the problem.
to read that much. People
It's like hidden behind like limited weapons, artifacts, whatever, books,
Exploration
and sometimes
and
you even
trials.
gotta go look outside the game entirely for some
Adventuring is
stuff.
right up my alley.
Like the official website stuff that's not stuff that's mentioned in the
I
game.
like to be having a story that is not presented in the best way. The world quest of Enkanomiya that wasn't even voiced was one of the most important quests for people who like the lore. It was
that's
really,
a fair point. I forgot about that
really
entirely.
good that you can know about the existence of this world, that you can make so many theories of, and that's what
I tend to make the habit. I'm sure a lot of players are in this habit, but like I tend to make the habit of, if it's not voiced, I think I just want to skip it outright. And I sometimes read, but I most of the time skip. I very rarely make the exception to go ahead and read. I do this for WoW as well. It's not exclusive to Genshin.
Find a lot of YouTube channels for lore for Genshin Impact, and
any
you
other
probably won't
game I
have
play
so
that
many
does this,
for Wuthering Waves.
where they have plenty of voice stuff, and then suddenly it's unvoiced, and I suddenly have no.
For two reasons. First of all, of course, Wuthering Waves does present its lore so that it's not that vague. Secondly, of course, people would like to learn these things from YouTube instead of reading a lot. And third of all, because the lore is way deeper.
Yeah, some good lore
The biggest
channels.
problem with this is that the lore isn't that happy kid story that you can see with Paimon in the storytelling. This is what's frustrating with.
Yeah, so I'm also of this opinion. Like I said, Paimon is garbage and it's super annoying, but the fact that the first and foremost front of your face and your eyes gameplay experience story, like, why is everything supposed to be child safe, child friendly, all this whitewashing, censored out, no adult themes, no dark themes, just the industry's going mad with just oversaturation of this. I think gameplay and storytelling would be way better if they focused on adults, because kids are the same people whose brains are the same as adults, who will eventually grow into somebody who understands adult things and doesn't like kid things. So that's where we all stagnate. We all stop at adult. We don't go past adult, right? But kids are developing, and you want to give them presentable kid stuff, but eventually, like, kids start wanting adult-themed content much earlier
Many
than
insects
adults'
have a
policies
compulsion
actually
to
think.
follow the light.
In my opinion,
And
when you hit
humans are the
16,
same.
you don't really care for
Except we
child
call
bullshit
that light
anymore.
hope.
And people who are gonna play these games, who spend money on these things, are more or less adults. So the crowd is more or less adults, not so much kids, I feel, is my opinion. Somebody who has some income are the people who play this. It's not too many kids who play this and have like access to crazy income, except if they steal a criticals or whatever. There's plenty of kids playing this, like, in general, but I think just percentage-wise, it's probably more adults than what do you call it, like side income, people with side income, right, or disposable income stuff
Instead of confining
that
themselves
play
to the
stuff
heavens,
like this. And I think they
God
should
should
just
broaden
embrace
their
their true
horizons
audience
in
and
the
just
world
make
below.
the stuff for adults, you know, make plenty of, or if they want to be even about it, make stuff for kids and adults that is front and foremost center, and like main story can be more adult centric. I don't see why not. It's been 5 years. Imagine like a 12-year-old right now or a 13-year-old right now is already 18, right? Like, so the fan base grew up quite a bit since the game first came out. Why not just be more adult themed now? Like, what the hell?
With it. And that's why even me, after
The
saying
fan
all
base
that,
literally
I
isn't
do
old enough to
prefer
have kids,
playing
but
the
is old
story
enough
of
to not
Wuthering
care
Waves.
for
So
child
that's why
bullshit
I would
anymore.
give the point to playing the story for Wuthering Waves,
Yeah.
but I do give the point that the story of Genshin and the lore is way better. Now
So it's
let's
not more
move
kids
on
being
to the
added
gacha
to the game.
system. Now,
It's
we
more kids
do not
becoming
have to
adults
talk
now.
a lot about the gacha system because it is easy to tell which one is better. Wuthering Waves saw the gacha system of Genshin Impact and they just said, okay, let us make it more forgiving. With instead of having a 90 pity, you have an 80 pity, and especially with the weapon banner, this is what makes it way better, is that you have a weapon banner that has no 50-50. And I do think that almost most games should remove 50-50 in every single banner, and that's what some of the newer games are doing, like Do a Night Abyss, who also differentiates the standard banner. So we have a standard banner for characters and a standard banner for weapon, and also the weapons you still can.
The overall gacha system is stupid predatory bullshit that I hate in general myself personally. But if we have to have it, fuck the limited and fuck the 50-50. But best option is just delete this stupid system. It's such predatory and bullshit. It's obviously made to whale bait and make unreasonable money on things that should not cost anywhere near this kind of amount of money to get or to have. It's really bad. Really predatory thing. I hate all the games that do this, even though I play them because they're really good and I engage in it as much as I can from the free play standard. I do find myself needing to spend sometimes just to keep up with the meta.
Choose them. So of course the Wuthering Waves gacha system is better, but especially that you
Or if I
also
really
can
want the
buy
character
dupes from the
because of
shop
their
for
design. But I
characters
still
so
think
that you
it's
can
bullshit.
get a C2 character, for example,
I absolutely
easier
don't
and
agree with
probably
it.
cheaper for whales. But also, WoA does also give more pulls to the players than Genshin Impact. It's just an easy W for Wuthering.
I'm actually not sure about that fact. I don't think WoA gives more pulls than Genshin. I think they're kind of even. It depends on what the amount of events are. And Genshin devs don't think of it from like, in this patch compared to the patch of our competitors, they think like, if a person played day one and barely pulled or didn't pull at all, how much would they have saved up to now? So how greedy or generous should we be in this patch 5 years later? I think that's how they think in reality. How much promos did we give out from day one? They don't separate them by patches like this. But I do think both games could stand to be more generous, especially since Wuthering, in my opinion, does not give more pulls. They give you a bunch of more events, and Wuthering events are, I guess in my opinion, also worse, more tedious. Even if they reward the same or more, there's more of them, they're more tedious, and some of them tend to also, if they're combat centric, also tend to favor the new character that you have to pull in order to do good enough in them to get all the rewards in the first place. Genshin only recently started doing this with the Stygian thing, but at least you can do up to hard pretty easy and then co-op and get most of the rewards. In the Wuthering one, you're actually pretty hard locked from the very first point of that challenge. They I don't know if they still do this, but they have done this in the past. So like, I don't know, a new fusion character comes out, oh you need a fusion is bought for this event, but you need it in order to reach a certain like threshold of damage, a certain amount of time, so you can get all the rewards. Otherwise you don't get all the rewards. And it's not like you can get most of the rewards. No, you're gonna miss out a lot of rewards when they do shit like that. So even though on paper they give you enough, maybe even a little more than Wuthering, they gatekeep you so hard you can't get all that stuff. It's annoying. I don't know if they still do it because I have not been paying attention too hard to the events currently, but this has been my experience when I try to seriously play the game and do the events actually.
Wuthering Waves here.
The only
and that's
thing
the
that
reason I
we
fell off of
might
trying to
talk
do all
about
the
is
events.
the existence of 4 stars.
Many
Problem is, they're
insects have
not
a
making
compulsion
more
to
4
follow
stars
the
in the
light.
game that are good. And in
Humans are
Genshin, you could have a full roster of 4 stars that can do a really decent damage or sometimes clear some endgame content. Now the thing with WoA, characters like Danjin are very powerful, characters like Sanhua, as I said, are broken, but we don't have so many. They're not making as much 4 stars.
And of course there's the daily commissions and the daily things that you can do. I do think that Genshin, after updating their dailies like almost a year ago now, they now do probably have the best daily system in terms.
Yeah, if you think about it, we as players, it seems a universal. The less tedious and the more convenient and faster and easier something is, the more we like it. Despite their constant bitching about wanting harder content, except me, I might be the exception, but I always tell people don't bitch about asking for harder content because you don't actually want it, trust me. And I always say this, and I know that's because when things are more difficult or tedious to do, no matter how good their reward is less interesting and more of a chore to grind through to get. Right? You don't feel pleasure from getting that reward. You feel pleasure from finally not having to do this anymore and getting all the rewards, rather than enjoying the thing that led you to the reward. And so I'd say, like, they're gonna monetize you harder, they're gonna do worse things, it's gonna be more predatory if you ask for harder content and they actually give it to you. It's gonna be stupid, it's gonna be annoying. Told people this when it was Genshin and they kept saying we want more endgame stuff. There you go. Try doing above hard and Stygian. It's pay to win bullshit at this point, in my opinion. It's horrible. I don't even like the theater thing, because it's like pay to win in another way, where you have to pay to win a lot of the stupid bullshit energy thing that they have in order to build up enough characters sufficiently enough that they can all be useful in the stupid bloated HP monster content that the theater thing provides, which is another level of annoying. But yeah, like, if you combine all the little, like, all the permanent events and things, I think Wuthering is less rewarding than Genshin per patch. Considering you can 36 star the Abyss, you could do the theater thing, you can do the Stygian, all the events. Like, if you could do all that, I think you probably get more primos. And even though the gacha system is a little friendlier on weapons and the pity is smaller in Wuthering, I do think Wuthering on the back end doesn't let you get early 5 stars as easily as Genshin does. So it's give or take. Like, on paper, Wuthering is better in gacha, and so you could think of them giving you less rewards as more rewards too. But Genshin is kind of like, you'll just sometimes get 2 stars in your first 10 pulls. Like, shit like that happens more frequently in Genshin, in my opinion.
In terms of farming, what you
But it's
need
still
for
a stupid
characters,
system to
or
have gacha.
you know,
I hate
using your
the
resin
gacha
every
system
day or
overall.
your
It
wave
needs to
plates,
die out.
Wuthering
I'm
does
glad
have a
it
way
exists.
better experience, just especially for the fact that they still, in Genshin Impact, if you want to farm something, you need to farm it in a specific day. This is so...
Yeah, that part is stupid. Having specific day to get something is extremely stupid, but Wuthering is not scot-free here either. So a new character comes out, you just did your weekly to get those mats for the character that you wanted to level. It so happens that you did your weeklies a day or two before the new character came out, and you're trying to build a different character, and now the new character came out and you cannot get their weekly materials because you shut out of luck until next week because you ran out of time, and now you're waiting for a whole ass next week to get those materials for that bloody character. Right? This is Wuthering. They don't let you do more than 3 runs of a weekly boss for reward. You can keep fighting them, same as in Genshin, you just can't collect the rewards anymore, right? Wuthering straight up says, nope, that's it, bitch, you wait till next week, and that next week could be 6 days away, or whatever. You're just stuck waiting on building this new character that you just got as a drop. They don't have like a special weekly reset for the new character drop patches, which they should. They don't. You're waiting a full week, you're shut out of luck, it doesn't matter. You were building Prolova Augusta drop, but you did the weekly for Prolova, that's it, you cannot do the weekly boss for Augusta. Goodbye. Period, right? Genshin, while it does have the stupid weekly things, a lot of players who are like day one by now have such a stockpile of stuff, they can probably just get those things anyway. Waiting a day or two is not so bad as waiting a full week. And why I say this, while Genshin also has the weekly bosses, is because unlike Wuthering, Genshin only lets you do 1 reward on a weekly boss, while Wuthering lets you do 3 rewards, but Genshin does 2 things. First, your first 3 weekly bosses get a 50% discount on resin cost. So they're not 60 or 80, they're 30. Second thing it does, you can run each boss and get their rewards. So if there's 10 weekly bosses that you want to do in Genshin, you can only get 1 reward 1 time per week, but you can do all 10 bosses and get all 10 different rewards. Until next week you could do it again. So you can actually do different weekly bosses for different characters. If you were grinding for Kinich and suddenly Shilonen drops, yeah, you won't max them out, but you can still do on that same week that you did Kenichi's weekly boss, you can still do Shilonen's boss, and you can get those weekly materials and put them on Shilonen and get her a bit higher and a bit more useful than she otherwise would be, right? So Wuthering cuts you off by a full week. Genshin, having the same cutoff week, does let you collect for every single weekly boss every single week. It doesn't just cap you at pick your 3 bosses and then wait a full week to get 3 different ones. It doesn't do that. All weekly bosses are attainable per week in Genshin. Wuthering doesn't let you do that. It's just 3. You run one guy 3 times, that's cool. If you want to do one guy 3 times, it's better than Genshin, because Genshin only lets you get rewards 1 time. But Genshin requires dramatically less resources to build their character, so 1 time is honestly fine. And they don't get you out of a different weekly boss's rewards in that same week, which is huge important thing that I don't think he's gonna bring up. So he's gonna be stuck on this whole day thing, and I think it's not fair enough. I think it's important to bring up the flaws in both. And this is why I think they're kind of even on this. It's not one is better than the other. They have the same bullshit in a different kind of way. And of course it's a problem. Like, why have weeklies anyway? And resin. And again, I could go with the overarching problem of fuck all this, let me grind unlimited anyway. I don't care about resin or weekly or daily or any cutoffs. Stop fucking with my time cuts and just give me all the content all the time, please, already, right? That's the reality of what we want.
Stupid. I don't know how this exists in Genshin. I don't know how this still exists in Genshin. But of course, there's other reasons. Instead of making condensed resin,
doesn't make it less
stupid.
And
do
doesn't
the
make Wuthering better.
Claim double the reward in Wuthering Waves. And that's why I will talk about the grind to build the character a little bit, which will probably have downsides with both games. As we said,
I've already mentioned the grind.
You need to wait for a certain day to do something which makes it instantly worse. That's the problem, because in every probably other thing it's better than.
Yeah, except the weeklies, like I said. You don't have to wait for the weekly boss. If you have a different boss, if those, that's another thing Genshin does. They have a lot of condensing, so a lot of the same materials will be used for newer characters to level them, which is super convenient because you probably overfarm some of those materials and now you have less farming to do for the new character. But if they don't, and there's no shared weekly boss between 2 characters you're trying to farm in one same week, you can actually do the other weekly boss for the other character too.
Wuthering Waves, because the Wuthering Waves has another problem, which is, of course, it's a gacha game, but resources for building your character.
I noticed that Wuthering doesn't have much of resource condensing. In fact, the only things they condensed were the things you needed to farm the most, which made it worse because you didn't have a surplus, because all the characters keep eating the same stuff over and over. This happened with a few characters in Wuthering. This is the problem too. Because Genshin is more generous when they condense items. They give bigger time between patches. They give you breaks between needing those same items. And when they condense them, it's because by this point, if you've played already, there was plenty of surplus for you, and so it's actually easier when Genshin does it that way than the way Wuthering did it.
Echoes are still limited, even though they're giving more with events now, but they're still not as good as what Genshin gives. Now here's the thing, we can go with the fun side of farming echoes. This is another thing that you can do on a daily basis, or you can do sometimes. The fact that you can go with your friends or even alone and farm a boss echo in an unlimited amount of times.
Yeah, how good is it when you can do something unlimited amount of times without the stupid resin energy system? They just need to delete that out, right?
And the fact that now we can easily choose the main stat for every echo, which of course will make building the character way easier.
That part is awesome. That part is genuinely awesome. The way Wuthering lets you pick main stat is absolutely insanely amazing. The way Genshin does it is fucking horrid bullshit, horse crap. And I don't even want to explain why. One is insanely grindy and requires like 3 different systems of convoluted nonsense, while the other one's like, here's an item, just use it, just select the stat, and whatever you select is now the main stat. We're gonna give you like 60 of those things. Where Genshin is like, we're gonna give you 3 per patch and you need 3 for 1 item.
easier. Now, of course, to be fair with Genshin, you can
bullshit.
now have a thing that makes you have 2 whole substats and choose them, which is really good,
That's the
but
thing I was
it's
talking
not
about.
that easy to get it. But with including this
It's
point
not that
also
easy to
goes
get.
for Wuthering Waves. Now, before we go to the
It's
end,
easier to pick a main stat and re-level a few echoes until you get the substats you want. It's faster and easier to do that, begging an RNG, than what Genshin has, where it is guaranteed, but it takes time to farm, so new players can't. Older players will have more access to this.
endgame system, let us go to the events. And for events, I would not be able to say that the Genshin or the Wuthering Waves events are just better in that thing, but you can say that some events in Wuthering Waves are better than Genshin, some events in Genshin are so good. The only problem that I could see with the Genshin events is that a lot of them got repetitive. The second problem is actually just...
Yeah, that's true. Events do get repetitive, but I think like both can be repetitive given both existed 5 years, you know? That's where, generally, this is where, if you want variety, you literally just switch games, right? You don't rely on one game to provide you all entertainment. You literally switch to a new game that just released. If it's good and you enjoy it, then you can enjoy it, and it's different. And it's, even if you just need them to be open world, there's plenty of open world games that come out that are different enough where you can get your variety fix just by playing different games. Just I guess the main point is don't be stuck to one game and then bitch about how it doesn't have enough variety and it's getting old. You should be taking breaks from games, and if all you want to do is game, then take breaks by switching to a different game entirely, you know?
Remember, another problem is that some of those events give you exclusive things, exclusive weapons especially, and you cannot...
Yeah, that is crap. If a weapon is so restricted that it's never repeating again, it's worse than limited 5-star characters who have reruns, if the weapon will never have a rerun. Even the first Descendant had figured out a way for you to be able to re-get those weapons after you missed like the battle pass that they were on or whatever.
Get them again, where this problem doesn't exist with Wuthering Waves, and they make some events...
Yet, it doesn't exist yet. The game has been out for 1 or 2 years or something. It's not been out long enough for it to not yet... Like, it's currently not a problem, but it might be something they end up doing with limited event 4-star weapons. We don't know, right? It's still... we can only say currently. We don't know that they'll never do it. They probably will. In my opinion, they probably will.
It's permanent, and they do a rerun of those weapons in some newer events so that you can get more. Now, for the newer events with Wuthering Waves, they just make some events that are just boring, okay? But then they make, in the same version or the exact next version, they make an event like this new TFT event with cards and things like that. That is so good and fun. Or they make an event like the fishing event.
The card stuff is cool. The card stuff and fishing stuff, that stuff is cool, but it's like the expected thing, right? Every open world game now just follows the formula of like Skyrim and Witcher 3, where you suddenly have a side activity like a mini game within a game, right? You have like Gwent and you have fishing and card game seems to just be the expected norm to always make it into an open world game, if not right away in a later patch. And I don't mind that. That's cool. I love it. I don't want this to be I don't want this norm to change. I actually want to experience fishing and card games within like robust, epic, high quality open world games. I do want the mini game stuff to take me away from the action and give me a break by being variety and different.
More creative in Wuthering Waves, but I do remember that there's a lot of good events in Genshin Impact, especially like that one event that you can customize a level, a way of a platformer level, and you can make it hard. And you know, I really enjoyed this with my friends back in the day. That was probably one of the best events that I ever played in any gacha, to be honest. And that's why I will not be giving the point to Wuwa or Genshin. Maybe if we only talk about recent event, I would maybe give this to Wuwa, but that's it. Now, before the quality of life changes, let's talk about the end game. The end game with Genshin
it's predatory bullshit in both games now.
This to Wuwa
that's what the end game
because the holograms are a really really fun thing to do, and they're not mandatory or in a limited time. So for people who don't want to do holograms, they just can do them whenever they want. And with the Abyss system, I do think that is a step up than what we have in Genshin. It also gives more rewards. It is also more...
I don't. I think the Abyss system on Wuthering is predatory bullshit that requires building characters, a lot like Genshin's predatory theater, which requires building characters. I hate that they can't just let you pick one team and do everything with that one team. I understand the problem that what's the point of all these different characters we're gonna make you pull for if you're not gonna have the need or desire to get them, because the content we give you, you can already do with your already fully invested, fully built characters. So we're not gonna be able to monetize it anymore, therefore we need to provide you bullshit greedy monetization practice kind of content where you must have the required feel or pull to pull. You gotta be pulled to pull for the new character in order to be able to more efficiently clear this new stuff. I get it, and then it's like, well, what's the point of having 3 million characters if you're only gonna use like 3 of them, right? So they want also variety content where different characters should be built for it. I get it, but they should just allow you to just put one team, because what if you just don't like you're not the grinder type player, or why you don't have options as a player who just wants to enjoy the content with a fully built main character team. You have your head canon of who's your main character, and you just want to do all content with that character and that's it, right? Why is that not an option?
More challenging and more fun.
It would
We
be
also
so
have
much
another
better and
permanent
easier, and
endgame
people would
mode that
love
you
it.
can do weekly, which is the Dreamscape event. It's really cool. It's fun. We have
see,
the
that's
Whimpering
cool. You
Waste,
should do it
which is
with one
not my
character.
favorite,
That
to be
kinda shit is
honest.
cool.
But for Genshin, now
But it
we
is a little
have
drag. It
something
takes
that
long,
they
it's not
announced
the
that will
best.
be in the game. But also, we have the Abyss and the Theater event. And I do think, like I do not like Whimpering Waste. I do not like the Theater event. The Abyss is okay, which makes me go to the other thing, which is the quality of life changes, and probably this made the reputation of Wuthering Waves way better, and that's why the point of the quality of life changes will also go immediately to Wuthering Waves, because the amount of changes that people ask for, that the game needs, are happening almost in every patch, and a lot. There's a lot of things that should have been added in Genshin Impact, but they're not added yet. And
okay, it should go to Wuthering, but not because Wuthering quality of life is dramatically better than what Genshin offers. More so that they actually listen and do the thing in a non-trolly exact way that the community wants, and therefore, yeah, effectively better quality of life because it's more directly reflecting what the community wants. Should definitely go to Wuthering. Genshin doesn't have like a terrible experience where it needs a crap ton of quality of life, where it's just unplayable without it. Like it's fully comfortable experience. Just that he doesn't really mention it that way, but Genshin experience is fully fine. It's comfortable enough. It's whatever. It's just extra things that the community asks for are not being met correctly, while Wuthering does meet them correctly. That alone, like meeting them correctly, is the point Wuthering gets.
to be fair, there's some people that are just defending Genshin with this and saying that the spaghetti code and you cannot change the code. Those are a lot of people who don't have any idea what.
No such thing as spaghetti code. These motherfuckers make billions of dollars. They have the talent or the money to get the talent to fix, to add, to create, to make better quality of life stuff. No.
They're talking about. Okay, some
This
things
greedy
can't be
companies
changed with
have plenty
Genshin,
of
but a
money. They
lot of
should
other
definitely
things
be using
are
them
way
to our benefit.
simpler than you think. I will not just talk about the quality of life changes, the things. I even talked about some in Genshin Impact, so I would not waste your time with it. And one of them that I talked about it already in this video, it's the skip button, for example. It's changing how they tell the story, although they said they will. And so I try to be as fair as possible. I know that some of the latest points just went.
Yeah, like skip the button in Genshin is such an absolute troll. Oh, you're just gonna get a skip time button. You're not skipping the time of the cutscene. You're just getting a slightly easier access to the clock, and it'll be slightly faster with the way the clock spins and skips time to where you need to be. Like, okay, like, fuck it, I want like a skip cutscene, I don't want a skip timer. Fuck. block thing.
Straight to Wuthering
Super
Waves.
trolling.
With the first few points, I really tried to give both games a really fair chance, and I do think that really Genshin, there's some undeserved hate for Genshin in some things, and you could see what I said with them.
Yeah.
But that's probably it. I
Both games
do
have
for now
deserved and
enjoy playing
undeserved
WoW
hate.
more, but in the
Both
same time, I
games
don't
should
think that Genshin is a horrible game.
stand equally. Neither game is horrible. Both games are really good quality, and both games should be played by people. It's fine. You don't need to be fanatical fandom side picker nonsense loyal brand thing. But also a lot of that stuff is fake botting or paid for accounts or shadow employees or whatever, spreading like hate and trying to create like tribalism, which, you know, is artificial because I bet a lot of people are not that crazy. And I mean, there's plenty of people who are crazy, but it's probably more illusion than reality when it comes to the way it's portrayed on the internet, I imagine.
There's some things that are horrible in it. Let me know what you think about the video. If you like this content, press the like button and subscribe to the channel. And that was the video. Bye bye.
This outro is cool. But yeah, really good guy. Really good guy. I don't know why the subscribe didn't work, but the like worked, whatever. Like, subscribe, hell yeah, let's go. Appreciate this dude's take, even though I had my own fight to put up here, but still a great video, right? Good times being able to live a life where we talk about video games.